Hello, hi, welcome back to 444 Keys to Wisdom. I hope everybody's doing well this morning. I hope you got your coffee because I got mine. So I gotta hit these streets for a second. So before I do that, I wanted to do like a quick video. Excuse me. Hold on, y'all. Got to clear that throat chakra. Got to clear that throat. Oh, excuse me, y'all. So listen, real quick. I wanted to share some pointers on self-mastery. And if this video helps you, like the video, share it, what have you. But I want to just kind of share some of the formulas that I used for self-mastery. Now, everybody's different. Everybody learns differently. Everybody, does not process things the same way. And I do acknowledge that, as a life coach and many other things, people ask me a lot of questions about certain things. And they're like, well, how do you know this? And how did you do this? And how did you do that? And how did you come out of this? And how did you come out of that? So for me, I'm a reader. Okay. Ever since I was a little kid, I love books. Okay. I love to read. I love words, things like that. When I went to school, for a short bit, I majored in, English. So I love to read. I love to learn. I'm very curious. I've always been a curious person, even as a little kid. So for me, I read books. I read a lot of books. So I want to share with you, I've read, oh my gosh, honestly, I know I've read over 300 books in my life, but self-help books are my favorite. And I want to share just a few of the books that I've read in my lifetime that were life-changing, that I know for a fact these books still contribute to the life experience that I'm having right now. You know what I'm saying? Which is great. But I know these books, that I read even in the past, they stuck with me. Like certain things just stick with you. I remember closing some of these books when I got finished and I was forever changed, like literally forever changed, and I could never go back to certain things. And once I gained a certain understanding of certain things, I just, once you see it, you can't unsee it, right? But it's a process, it's not instant, step by step. As the years go on, you learn more and more and you begin to evolve. So there's certain books that stand out to me. Like I said, they were definitely life-changing. But what caused it is like, not for everybody, but for some people like me, traumatic events is what will cause you to try to figure out, how do I master myself? How do I be different? You know what I'm saying? How do I be better? And so in the beginning part of my life, I reached for religion. I'm a preacher's kid, so to speak. I even did ministry myself for many years before I denounced organized religion from my life. The Bible was always a go-to, and I had to learn, just for me, like I said, this is not for everybody, but for me, there were certain things that just never ever made sense. They never resonated. So, and it took a very traumatic event in my life for me to really dig into that and stop just following what I was taught as a child. And, especially when you're, a child of a minister, the pressure is even heavier. You don't have the choice to question things. You know what I'm saying? You just do. You just follow. But for me, I had to. I was just like, something ain't working. It ain't adding up. And it took a very traumatic event in my life for me to start digging into why this is not working. It's supposed to work. You're telling me this is what I'm supposed to do, but this is not working. Many years ago, over a decade ago, I have 4 children, but I lost custody of 2 of them after a divorce. And so I just, and I was actually in the middle of doing ministry, or actually I was coming out of doing ministry at the time. Okay, it was like I was doing ministry day and night. And then I went through a situation where I faced homelessness. Okay, I lost a job. And it took me a long time to find another job. But by the time I could, I was already getting put out my home. And the city that I lived in does not have many places for you to go, especially if you have children. So I actually had to relocate. And, my children at the time were with their father for, a summer break. And he offered to help and, till you get back on your feet. But unbeknownst to me, that was a setup. So I stayed in a homeless shelter for about 6 months. But in the process of being in that homeless shelter, I was being taken to court, by my ex-husband for my kids. And I actually lost, because when I left the shelter, I went into public housing. And, that's what happens when the people have more money than you, they win. And then my ex-husband was actually in another state. He had moved to another state. So when you're not around to speak your truth and tell your side of the story, people can say whatever they want to say and it'll be the truth because you're not there to defend yourself, right? So, and I went to the projects, and that situation, I was just like, how is it that I was doing ministry? I was working for God all these years, lose my job all of a sudden, like in the blink of an eye. I went to sleep and I woke up and my life was just different. I was homeless. I was like, what just happened? And I just didn't understand. And I was just like, what is going on? And then even in the middle of me going through this custody battle, I was just praying and praying and praying, like, this is not right. What is going on? Like, my kids are being kidnapped, and where is the Lord right now? You know what I'm saying? It was just silence. And I'm like, I was, a minister, a youth minister, not a youth minister, but the baby. I did a ministry with the babies for like 3 years before that. And I actually left the church and then lost my house. It was just a mess. It was a mess. Even being in the homeless shelter. Like, I never thought I would be homeless like that. Living in the shelter. And after my divorce, I had another child or whatever off of a rebound relationship. So I had her with me. And it was just a lot going on. And God was not speaking. I'm like, what is going on? You know what I'm saying? Then I got the verdict that I lost custody of my children, and then I had to pay child support for both of them, and I was like, well, how is that possible? I'm a single mother in the projects, and this man married, and they making all this money. How the heck I got to pay them child support? You know what I'm saying? And then by this time, I have 2 other kids, and I'm not getting child support for them, but I'm paying child support. So when it comes to that, I don't have a lot of sympathy for men because I went through that as a woman. And by the time it was said and done, I understand what it feels like to be done with child support, because when I got my letters that my sons was 18, I kissed the grass. Do you hear me? And I remember getting like $400 something back because I was overpaid. So when it comes to taking care of responsibility, like I said, I'm a single woman. I did that on my own, and I had 2 other kids that I do not get support for. So if I could do it, a lot of these men don't have no excuse, right? So anyway, but that was years ago. My kids, they in their 20s now. That was a long time ago. But that situation was a catalyst. This is what you call alchemizing pain, okay? But what I realized is I was being also taught the difference in religion and spirituality. But what happened was that situation caused me to dig and dig and dig. Like, what is going on? So I started to see things much differently. So I started to read. I've read the Bible from Genesis to Revelation several times. Like I said, I'm a preacher's kid. So I did ministry myself. I had to know it. So I know all of that stuff. And so what I began to do was take the parts that I could see were relevant in my life, and the rest of that, I was like, no, something ain't right here. I've read the Torah, and when I read the Torah, and I'm naming these books because these are the things that caused my evolution. So, the Bible is definitely responsible for a lot of my growth, but there's a lot of it that I was being taught. There's a lot of things in the Bible that was just complete BS. or it's completely being misinterpreted and it's being mistaught in the world. This is not what that meant. You know what I'm saying? The interpretation has been twisted so bad, it's really ruined a lot of our people, especially black people. But anyway, so, you know, Jesus is basically the king of the slaves, for real, you know. But if you want a prosperous life, that's not going to help you. But anyway, I remember reading, I don't know, it was just something came to me, it was like, read the Torah. So I ordered the book because it wasn't easy to find. I read the Torah. The Torah is basically like, I want to say maybe like the Jewish Bible. It's nothing but the Old Testament, but it's a different version of what, if you have ever read the Holy Bible's Old Testament, it's very different. It's actually more detailed than what's in the King James Version, Old Testament. And so I was like, whoa. Honestly, I identified more with the Torah, okay, the Torah's recount of the Old Testament more than the Holy Bible. And I said, now this feels like the truth to me, okay? So if you ever, you know, if you've never read the Torah, just for the sake of, not to be religious, like I said, I'm not a religious person. I left organized religion years ago. But just for the sake of curiosity, I would encourage you to read the Torah. You'll be very surprised. The Torah, it's like it humanized the people in the Old Testament better. It describes more of their imperfections in life. These were not perfect people. They made mistakes. They did bad things sometimes, but they were still, you know, good people. They were still powerful people. So I really appreciate that about the Torah. I've read the Kabbalah. Well, let me back up. I've read the Quran. You know, what I appreciated about the Quran was just the discipline, you know, that a lot of Muslims have, that a lot of, you know, that is just not in Christianity. The relationship to man and woman, I really appreciated that. I kind of gleaned that from it because I am kind of traditional in that sense. But when I got a hold to the Kabbalah, oh, it was a wrap for all that. It was a wrap, but it took me about 7 years to truly understand it, though. I read it off and on, little bits, pieces in there over the years, and it was just, you know, put together like a puzzle. You know, the Kabbalah is not easy to understand in one sitting. That's going to take some years, and I get it. I finally get it. But once I got a hold to that, it was a wrap for all that other stuff. But I was already out of religion by then. But some of the other books, though, that were life-changing, and, you know, when you start to feel like you want your life to be different, number one, you have to be okay with change. Okay? You have to be okay with change. All right? Change is so scary to so many people, you know, and I have an autistic son, and change is very difficult for autism. So it's like I have to find that balance, because I love change, you know, but then I have to be very careful how I parent when changes come for our family because of my son. But the average person does not like change. So that's the first thing. You have to, number one, be okay with change, because if you want something different, you're going to have to do something different, right? Long time ago, I finally got the revelation of that description, that insanity is the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over, expecting a different result. That is insane. So if you want your life to be different, you have to be okay with change. So you have to sit with yourself and say, whichever way things change, am I going to be okay with that? Do I have the courage to move through things being different? Do I have the courage to move through looking at things like in a way that I've never seen before? So that's number one. And it takes a lot of courage to be okay with change. It really does. The next thing, you have to have a will to want to be different. You know what I'm saying? I was sick and tired of seeing certain patterns in my family and my life. And like I said, that experience with my sons was like, no. I fought as hard as I could, but for whatever reason, Jesus didn't come through to help me. But I'm glad, because that wasn't the way to do it. Like, what, you know, in my family, we were taught that religion solves everything. You got to bring Jesus into everything. But that situation taught me that's not true. And I was like, okay, you know, the Bible talked about generational curses a lot, but they don't tell you how to fix them other than prayer. That's not it. You can't just be praying. Prayer Prayer does not fix things. And then, it's not, I wouldn't say prayer doesn't fix things. That's not the only thing you're supposed to do. There's more to it than just that, I should say. And then I will always be quoted that scripture, faith without works is dead. Well, what's the works? What is the works? That's what I was on a mission to figure out. I had the faith, but nothing moved in my favor. So what happened? What's the works? So I started to read, to find out. No one in my family could give me that answer because we were all in the same boat. Okay. So I had to go to sources that was completely unrelated to me. Okay. I had to stop going to the church because they're giving me the same answers. I had to stop going to people that were in the same mind frame that I'm in, because I'm trying to get out of that mind frame. I'm trying to change my environment, so I can't go to you. So I started to read, and over the years, this is like over a period of time. And for me, it's like 2023. And even in the process of changing, things happen still. But I just, you got to keep pushing through. You got to keep pushing through. So one of the first books I want to share with y'all, and like I said, if you're not a reader, again, that's change. You're going to have to learn to become a reader. You got to get the knowledge. If you have issues with words, there's audiobooks. Listen to them, but you have to have a will to focus and listen and commit to learning from front cover to the end. You got to want it just that bad. A lot of people, they will say they want certain things, but when it truly comes down to doing the work, they're not going to do it. They would, and if a person that has done the work, they will sit back and talk about you because they can't handle the change that you're making, but they won't do it themselves. They don't have the courage to go through what you went through. They don't have the courage and the wherewithal to step into learning something different. They don't have the will, the commitment to learn what you've learned, but yet they don't have no problem running their mouth about what you're doing. And then when you start to get certain revelations and you start to learn things, you start to master certain things. And the first thing we want to do is share it with the people that we know, because we want everybody to come out like, hey, you want to call this person, like, let me show you what I learned. I'm going to send you this link and da-da-da-da-da and da-da-da-da-da. You're going to learn too. That's going to break your heart, because just because you're understanding a different way of life and you're mastering yourself, you're changing, you're making different decisions, instead of gleaning the information that you're sharing, most people actually will get upset because you're the one that know it. You're the one that's giving it to them, and they actually will attack you for trying to help them. I had a habit of doing that, especially in relationships. Try to present information, new information to people that I'm dating, because you want both of y'all to be on the same page. I have learned a valuable lesson. Listen, you present something to somebody one time. If they don't want to follow suit, if they don't want to do their own research or do their own work and listen to what you're saying that first time, let it go. They don't want it, because they will attack you. They will try to tear you apart for trying to help them and assist them with change. We are not supposed to change people. People change themselves, okay? We do not change, not a one. Hey, I read this book. Maybe that can help you. Leave it at that. Don't be like, well, why don't you? Well, sit down and watch this with me and let's do this. They will try to tear you apart for trying to change them and show them a different world. No, you keep showing yourself a different world. You master yourself. You can't master nobody else. And that's another thing too. A lot of people want to control certain people, places, situations when they don't have no control over themselves. You know what I'm saying? So when you realize you're around a person like that too, you got to back up. How you trying to control me and you don't even got control of your own life? Does that make it make sense? So that's why it's called self-mastery. Focus on you, okay? Share the knowledge with other people one time. But don't beat nobody over the head with change. Or don't beat nobody, somebody, well, how did you do this? And they will literally ask you, and you will tell them. They won't do it because they don't have that kind of strength and will that you have. You know what I'm saying? They don't have that commitment. Most people want to take the easy way. And to self-mastery, especially if you didn't have a good start in life, financially, whatever, they're going to get mad. Actually, even though they asked you for help, they're going to get pissed off because you actually had the help that they needed. Well, why you get to know that stuff? Or how come you get to understand it? Why you get to... But you asked me. So anyway, back to the books. So if you are a person that is truly, truly just tired, like, listen, my life got to get better. You believe in yourself. You're like, I know I can do this. I know I can have better in my life. I know I can do better for my children. I know I can get my money together. You know what I'm saying? Maybe you want a new car, or you want to relocate, or you want to, buy a home. You want to, whatever you want to do. You want to get off, maybe get off of certain substances if you have addiction issues. You want to get out of a relationship. You want to stay out of a toxic relationship. A different career path. But there's something within you that has to change so that you can attract what you're asking for. Okay. And a lot of it is your mind frame. Your mind creates your entire environment. Look around you right now. Whatever is going on around you, circumstances where you live, your environment, your mind created it. It's nobody's fault but yours. You created your circumstances by the way you think. Okay. And so when I got that revelation, I was like, okay, so in order to change the way I think, I've got to learn something different. So I started reading different things over the years. And over the years, I felt myself changing. Okay. You're going to have to leave a lot of people behind because they don't understand what you're trying to do. A lot of people don't want that. They'll say it, but they don't truly want it. They're not ready to do that kind of work. They want to take the easy way out, and there is no easy way. I had to leave a lot of people behind, and people will consistently try their best to keep you. There is a scripture that I remember that talks about a prophet has no honor in his own hometown. A prophet will never have honors in his own town, something like that. Because people that knew you at a certain place before, and they see you changing, they see you evolving, the thing that you would think is that they would be happy for you. They're not. No, they're pissed that you're not like you used to be, and they will hold on to whoever you used to be a long time ago, and they will not acknowledge the person that you've evolved into. No matter what, it does not matter. They will not believe it because they don't understand the work it takes to do that. Now, if they did that for themselves, they would understand it. But these is people, they just talkers. They're not doers. So the first book that changed my entire life, and I read this book in 2007. It is now 2023. And this book is still active in my life. And I'm so grateful for it because of some things that I've stepped into. And I had to endure a lot of verbal attacks from people because they don't like who I've become. I love who I've become. You know what I'm saying? I love it. But they don't like it. And it's okay. But it would have bothered me. And even like when I talked about the case, the custody battle that I lost, people will lie on you. They'll say all kind of things. And those things will literally make you sick and take you down through there if you let it. But what prepared me, it was like I read this book before any of those things even happened, and so it's like I was already being prepared for something. Dr. Joyce Myers has a book called Approval Addiction. Listen, y'all, if you are a person that for a fact you care what people think of you too much, I highly recommend you read Dr. Joyce Myers' book called Approval Addiction. Me reading Approval Addiction and comprehending approval addiction is why I can march to my own beat. It's why I feel like I'm successful in a lot of things, because I don't care what people think. I understand why people do what they do and say what they say. I don't let that stop me. You know what I'm saying? People, they're just words. You know what I'm saying? You have control over who you truly are. But I've seen how people that really, they care too much, especially their families. I've seen people literally not live their life and be so unhappy. They're living the life that their family wants them to live, and they're never going to live the life that they truly want. And to me, that's sad. That is heartbreaking. You know what I'm saying? You got one life right here. Why would you waste it doing something living the way that somebody else wants you to live. But if you have an addiction to being approved by others, this is what you will do. And like I've said before in other videos, it's crazy because these people will force you to live a life that they themselves actually didn't even have the courage to live. Make it make sense. So Dr. Joyce Meyer's approval addiction, that freed me from so much. And I feel like the things that came into my life later, the knowledge that I had and the understanding that I have from approval addiction, it freed me from my approval addiction, because I definitely used to have one. But when I was freed from that, just simply by understanding what Dr. Joyce Meyer was saying, I was prepared for the things that came later. I had to write some of these down because I didn't want to forget anything. So approval addiction by Dr. Joyce Meyer will free you forever. It freed me forever. Like I said, I read that in 2007, and that book still stays with me. Even now, I drive at certain times and I'll hear certain things, I'll hear about certain things, or I'll intuitively know certain things, and I still be like, oh man, thank you, Joyce. Thank you. Because had I not known what I knew, had I still had an approval addiction, that probably would bother me. That probably would have took me all the way down. But because I've been healed and freed from approval addiction, I don't give a fuck. I truly, in my soul, don't give a fuck. And that is the greatest feeling in the entire world, I'm telling you. The next book that changed my life forever, and it was one of, other than childbirth, was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, and saying goodbye to my mother and my little brother through death, physical death. The hardest thing I've ever had to do in life was go through grief recovery. And I myself am a grief recovery specialist now, so I walk other people through this journey now, and it's one of the greatest feelings ever, because I remember what it did for me. I bumped into grief recovery because, like I said, back then I was in religion, I was doing ministry, and this particular church I went to, before I started into the children's ministry, he required that every person go through grief recovery first. You could not participate in no ministry until you went through grief recovery. And I understand exactly why, because hurt people hurt other people. And he would say, you cannot come in my church and touch other lives if you have not dealt with your own traumas. You know what I'm saying? And people become re-traumatized in the church and in hospitals all the time. Churches and hospitals have a tendency to re-traumatize people over and over and over, and it makes it worse. So, and he was truly in the business of healing people. So he wanted to make sure that you deal with your own junk first, okay, before you try to help somebody else. And I always appreciate, like I say, I don't do religion, but I appreciated that from him. And there's a lot of things that I learned that I still keep with me. And like I said, I myself am now a grief recovery specialist, so I counsel people through that process myself. And when I get a person through their last session, it's one of the greatest feelings in the world, because I remember what it did for me. It's not easy though. Like I said, childbirth and physically having to say goodbye to my mother and my little brother through death, this is the hardest thing I had ever had to do. And watching other people go through this process is difficult. And I lose some people through the process because it's hard. When they get to a certain point, I get some that can't finish because it's not easy, So grief recovery method is very different than any grief counseling service or program you've ever seen before. It's very different. But it teaches you a lifelong skill of how to heal yourself through certain losses and major changes. It's not just about death and divorce. It's about major changes in life. So, when you go from one job to the next, that's a grief issue. When you have your first child, even though it's a beautiful event, that's a grief issue, because you're leaving behind a life that you'll never have again, because now you're responsible for someone. Getting married for the first time is a beautiful thing, but it's actually also an issue of grief, because your life is forever changed. So it covers so many things, but it helps you process grief for the rest of your life on your own in a very healthy way. It gives you the tools to help yourself, because loss is inevitable. Change is inevitable. We're all going to experience it. And that was by John James and Russell Friedman. These two gentlemen that created this program, they're amazing. John is passed on now. Russell is still here. And I'm so grateful for these men for creating this program. The next book, John Eldredge, Wild at Heart. This changed my life as far as parenting is concerned, especially if you're a single woman and you're parenting boys. It's not easy. We're not men. We cannot teach these boys how to be men, period. And so I'm a mother of 4, and I have 3 boys out of my 4, 1 daughter. And when I had to separate from my oldest 2 sons because of this custody issue, knowing what I knew from being taught from John Eldredge about the stages of men was what got me through that. And that was the thing that I leaned on, learning what I learned from the book is called Wild at Heart, okay? And it literally gives you all the stages of manhood that a man has to go through. And even when you meet men that are adults, once you read Wild at Heart by John Eldredge, you'll understand where certain men have skipped. They were never processed in certain areas of the stages of manhood. You'll be able to notice it, where they missed out or where they got stuck, where they get stuck at. But knowing that, you know, even though the custody battle was very unfair. Like I said, my kids were literally kidnapped for me. You know what I'm saying? But it was like I was powerless at the time. Leaning on the knowledge that these are 2 boys and they're with their father is what got me through that, because I set the foundation for them as babies and young children, you know, because they didn't go with their father till they was like 8. Maybe like 8 and 5, 9 and 5 or something like that. So the first half of their life, they were with me. And so I set that foundation, but where they were headed, they still were able to get more into becoming the men that I know I wanted them to be by being with their father, because I'm not a man. You know what I'm saying? I still fought for my children. But what's helped me surrender to the fact that if they never come home and they have to stay with him, here's the good in that. Okay, because I know you want your sons to be beautiful and strong men in this world, but there are certain things that you will never be able to give to them that you know that they'll get from their father. So if you have to let go, let go. But what helped me have that mind frame was that book, Wild at Heart by John Eldredge. So if you're a single mother and you're raising young men and they don't have male mentors in their life, read the book or find the audio book, Wild at Heart, John Eldredge. He Motion, T.D. Jakes. That's another one that was life-changing. It helped me understand men in general. It helps you humanize men. You know, sometimes as women, we have a tendency to forget that men have feelings, they have hearts, they have, you know, a side to them that needs to be taken care of. And some of that side, we need to understand which side of that we can't touch as women. We cannot tell a man how to be a man. Like, you cannot do that. But here's how you can support him through his journey in life. Okay, well, no matter what stage in life he's in. So, and it helps you understand where you can have your hands on with a man and when you have to take your hands off of certain things. Okay, and just allow him and his higher power to work that out, or him and within himself, his higher self, to work that out. But how you can still show your support and concern and nurturing nature without overstepping the boundary into this man's world. And because sometimes we can behave in a way as women where we can actually do more damage to that man, and we're not being helpful at all. We think we're being helpful, but we're not being helpful at all. And so reading T.D. Jakes' book is called He Motions. Okay, this is a classic. Helped me understand a lot about men, a whole lot about men that I'm grateful for. Even like right now, I still remember certain things. Any book by Robert Greene, 48 Laws of Power, Mastery. I read Mastery like 4 times by Robert Greene. The 50th Law of Power, with 50 Cent and Robert Greene, The Art of Seduction, The Laws of Human Nature. These help you understand just how powerful your mind is, okay? And it also helps you defend yourself against other people's manipulations and deceptions. Robert Greene is, oh my God, he will leave you speechless, because Robert Greene shows you the darker side of people. And so when people try to manipulate you and deceive you and do certain things, after reading some of his books, you'll be able to see it. And you'll be able to like, nah, nope, I ain't going. I see exactly what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? Like that, his books are fun. They're really fun to read. They empower you. They really do. But it helps you understand the shadow aspect of yourself and other people. And it actually helps you defend yourself. Robert Greene also helps you, you know what I'm saying, become successful. What it takes to become successful in such a cruel world sometimes. Financial success in a cruel world. You know, how to protect your heart from cruel people that truly don't want to love you. They just want to control you. You know, how do you combat that? How do you see beyond certain people's dark psychology? So Dr. Robert Greene, I don't know if he's doctor, but I call him doctor. I love me some Robert Greene. The Laws of Human Nature will save your life as well. Okay. But, and again, some of these books, y'all, it took me, I read them more than once, because some of them are so deep. It's like, but I had the will to want to know, and I truly wanted to understand, because I wanted my life to change. But I'm telling you, and my life is very different than it used to be. But as I evolved, I can see the work of these books in my life. I know I can see it working, so I know they work. You know what I'm saying? The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson. This one, because I'm an African-American woman, is about the Black migration. This book, it took me 3 years to read, 3.5 years to read. I actually just finished it a couple months ago. I went to a summit in my city called 400 Years of Equity and Inclusion. And I bought this book, and this has been such an eye-opener, and it helps me understand why the African-American culture has this crabs in a barrel attitude towards one another. It's about the Black migration. When slavery was over and we started moving from the South up to the North, what happened? How do we get to the certain places that we are in? You know, everybody flocked to Milwaukee first, Chicago. From the South, there are some people that never made it out of the South. There's some people that went to the North, but the North was just too much. They couldn't handle it. They ended up on drugs, or they ended up back in the South. The ones that made it to the North, they started doing well for themselves. They got a factory job. Then they would go back home to the South, and now everybody in the South was jealous, because like it is so deep. It helps you understand the DNA coding that we all still carry. You know, it's like that slavery PTSD. You know what I'm saying? That's actually still encoded in many of our genes. But it helps you understand why Black people why we treat each other the way we do, with this, oh, I'm better than you, and I'm better than, well, because I'm a Delta and AKA, and I went to this college and you didn't go to college, and you know what I'm saying? Because it's like there's so much competition amongst African Americans to the point that it gets so dangerous where we'll kill each other. But why? Because when you look at it from a white standpoint, they're like, all of y'all are powerless, for real, for real. So what y'all doing? You know what I'm saying? For real, y'all ain't even got no power. There's a perceived illusion of power that you're fighting each other over, to the point that you'll kill each other. Why? This book, Warmth of Other Suns, explains that. I get it. And I'm just like, wow, this is why we do what we do to each other. It's unnecessary, but this is why we do. But until people seek the knowledge to understand why, they can't change it. They can't do anything about it. But you gotta read. You gotta open up a book. You gotta listen to a book. You gotta get the information. And in this day of age, we have so much information available to us. There's no excuse. So you either just don't care, or you just lazy. Period. You know what I'm saying? You rather just complain instead of making a change and doing something about it. So The Warmth of Other Suns helped me understand something that goes on in my own culture. And why we treat each other the way we do. As far as finances, that helped me change and ground my finances coming from You know, I went to a high school in the suburbs, but my mother was on welfare the whole time. Like, I was the kid that would slide by the free lunch line, you know, and whisper free lunch because I was embarrassed. I didn't want nobody to know that I was on free lunch. You know, we lived in an apartment in a suburb, but my mother was on Section 8. You know what I'm saying? I would go to school and lie to my friends like, yeah, my mom went to work. My mother didn't go to work. She was on welfare. You know what I'm saying? All the other kids at school would talk about their parents working, and I would make up stuff like, no, I had a welfare mom. She had me when she was 16. She got her Section 8. That's the only reason why we in this suburb, you know. So I didn't grow up with a silver spoon. I didn't have money, you know. I myself did better as an adult. But then when I divorced, that went backwards. But I'm glad it did. Like, it's a part of me it's a traumatic experience that was like I know for a fact there's a hole in my soul that'll never be replaced from what happened with my children. But at the same time, I was given something else that I probably would have never received had it not been for that. And so to look at myself today, to be the successful person that I am, to have a successful side business, to, you know, I still work a 9 to 5 though. I ain't made it to that far. I ain't up there like that yet. But where I do work, I love it. I love the place that I work for. I love the hospital system. I love what I do there. I get paid well. You know, my side businesses, I love those. My hobbies. I mean, you know, and going from project living, you know, for 7 years in public housing to owning my own home. You know, it's just a couple years ago, I bought my first brand new car, fresh out the factory. You know what I'm saying? 20 miles on it. You know, that's something I never thought I could do. But I taught myself things, okay? I taught myself things. Now, people gonna fight you along the way, but that's okay. You know, what helped me with that was Think and Grow Rich. Now, I ain't rich now. Don't get it twisted. I ain't made it there yet. We okay. All right. We okay. I'm going to just say that, you know. But Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. I didn't write it down, but it's coming to me now. The 50th Law of Power with Robert Greene and 50 Cents is good for finances. And Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Forgive me because I can't remember the title and I didn't write the author's name down. But Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I read that 3 times. And the concepts are amazing. So I've been able to adopt a lot of the concepts. I'm still not quite there with a lot of things that he talked about and how to do. I have not been able to figure out how to pull myself out of certain areas of certain things he's talking about. But I have been able to pull myself out of certain areas that he is talking about. And I've given this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, suggested to so many people that have money issues, Think and Grow Rich, just financial literacy. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, my mother didn't understand that. My dad wasn't around. My mother didn't understand that. All we understood was the food stamps. You know what I'm saying? How to work your food stamps. You know what I'm saying? And then I was living that life too. I remember when I was in public housing, I received a letter for Section 8. And I don't know, y'all, something just shifted in me because like I was already on my journey of evolution, of changing, trying to get rid of a lot of generational curses. You know, like I don't want my kids to have to live a certain way. I don't want them to have to rely on certain things anymore because this is not easy. You know, when you're on welfare, everybody got to know your business every 6 months. And I got tired of that. Like, why I just want to live? Why do I got to tell you what I make? And every move my money makes, I got to keep reporting. I didn't like that. I wanted freedom. You know what I'm saying? Liberation is the goal. I haven't reached that, but I wanted freedom. But I remember getting this letter and I said, I felt happy, like, oh, I can get a house. But then I'm like, but that's still that poverty mindset. Now, I'm not tripping on nobody. I'm not, you know, if you're on Section 8, do you. That's a beautiful thing. You know what I'm saying? Get it how you need to get it. It's a step up, okay? It's a step up. Please don't misunderstand what I'm saying, okay? I was in the projects for 7 years. You know, I was born and raised in the projects at first. You know what I'm saying? I was raised in Section 8. But I just wanted my children to see something different, you know, and I knew it had to start with me. And so I'm like, okay, so what do I got to do? You know, and it was a scary thought. But when I got that letter from Section 8, I was excited. But then I was like, my mother raised me on Section 8. When she died, she was on, the day my mother died, she was on the bus. She took the bus to church. She still didn't have a car. I never made it to the point in life where I always wanted to take care of my mom. I always wanted to buy her things, and I always wanted her to stop shopping at thrift stores. I remember being able to buy her a 200 pair of glasses before. Like, I was so proud of them expensive glasses I was able to get for her, because she's always been, with her welfare glasses. And I wanted to take care of my mom. I wanted to take her on trips, and I wanted her to just, because she gave so much to so many people, and no one ever gave anything back to her. So I always wanted to do that, but she passed away before I could do that. So I'm like, okay, well, I have children that I can take care of. The children that I lost custody of, I said, okay. And actually, right before she died, actually at her funeral, my ex-husband had me served custody papers inside the church. Someone walked up to me before I went to the cemetery and gave me an envelope, and that's how I knew I was having to go to court for my children. But anyway, I remember her talking to me, though, while we were going through this custody battle, and she said, listen, you have 2 other children. I know you're hurting about the first 2, but you have 2 other children that are right here in your face that need you. I need you to focus on them. And so I thought back on that conversation I had with her. This was maybe 2 weeks before she died. I said, okay, she's not here to do this for, but I have children that I can do this for. I have children that I want to be proud of me. So let's give them a blueprint. And I took that Section 8 letter, and I remember I went to the first appointment, and there was so many people. It was like, oh my God, I was like number 40 something. And I looked around and I said, you know what? I'm not doing this. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do this. My mother, when she passed away, she was on Section 8. Do you want to die like this? Because if you do, your daughter's going to be on Section 8. Do you want your daughter to be on Section 8 too? Or do you want her to be successful and be able to buy her own house and stuff like that? That's what I want for my daughter. So there's a curse. There's something. You got to break this up. You got to break this up. How do you do this? And I said to myself, you're going to have to be real brave right now. We don't know how this is going to happen, but you're going to have to be real brave right now. I packed up all my little paperwork, our birth certificates and stuff, and I walked out of there. And I went home, and I threw that letter away. And I started researching. At the time, I was doing health insurance in a call center, and I started researching different places that pay well for what I do. And I found Las Vegas on the top of the list. Never visited Las Vegas a day in my life. And I said, you know what? I'm getting out of these projects. We're leaving. But because I've seen how protected I am by the universe and by the Creator, I knew no matter what, I would be okay. And I know how I perform when my back is against the wall. I think quick on my feet. So I purposely put myself in a position, y'all, where when I leave here, I can't turn around and come back. So I'm going to have to do it. I'm going to have to perform for my babies. Because I know one thing, I'm not going to let us fall. So I purposely put my back against the wall. I put in my 2-week notice at the job I was at. No, I was actually working as a community health worker at the time. I'm sorry. I wasn't at the insurance place. I was at the health department. So I put in my notice, and I just started packing up my house. My mother told me a long time ago that my grandmother told her, when you want to move, just start packing. It'll start changing your environment. So I just started packing. I started doing research. I was watching YouTube clips of what Vegas looks like. I found some temporary housing. I saved up money. And, maybe like 5 months went by. I rented a van, and I packed up everything I could in that van. And me and my children went to Las Vegas. And I started our life. It took me, I had enough money saved up where I was able to live we were able to live okay till I found a job. And I found a job at the Medicaid district within like 2 weeks. And I said, I knew it. I finally broke it. I broke it. And I was scared. I was nervous, y'all, because I hadn't paid full rent anywhere in 7 years. So I was like, oh, man, you're going to have to let this go, And at the time, I wanted a mate. I felt like I wanted to be married again or in a relationship or something like that. And I was like, well, in order to do that, you're going to have to stop letting the welfare system be your husband. You lean on the welfare system for everything you need, so there is no room for a man to come in. You don't need one, because you can always go there and get food and housing and all this stuff, so you have to let that go. So it was a scary thought, because I had gotten comfortable, but I purposely took myself out of that comfort zone, and I went all the way across the map. I did something so risky, y'all, but it worked out for me. I am not suggesting that everybody do this. Okay, I am not suggesting that you do that, but for me, it worked out to have that kind of blind faith. Okay, that's some insane faith. Okay, but faith without the works is dead. But my faith proved that it's very powerful. Okay, because I believed in me. I knew I'm not going to let me and my babies fall. So I purposely put myself in a position, once I leave here, I can't turn around and go back. First of all, I'm too far. I'm on the West Coast. You know what I'm saying? I can't go back, so I don't have no choice but to do. And I did it. I did it. So, and I was able to break that curse, and then I ended up moving again, and the next move became a homeowner. Never thought that was going to happen, y'all. Never thought. I was like, and I fought hard, because let me tell you something. They didn't want a black woman to own her house. Let me tell you, I went through it. I started the process in October, and I didn't close until March. It was a long process, and I cried some tears. I did, because they dug into my life. Do you hear me? I had to explain to them people why I was paying child support during them years. Oh man, they took me back to that. I said, what? Listen here. But anyway, so y'all, the point of this message is, when you really truly want to see a different life and you want something better, you have to do the work. If you're not comfortable reading books, listen to audiobooks, study. You know what I'm saying? You're going to have to spend some time alone. You're going to have to understand you can't take everybody with you. They're not going to be able to go because they're not going to understand. Just because you want something and you can see it works, other people don't share that same vision. Okay, they don't have those eyes that your eyes have. They have to do the work for themselves. If you got a spouse or whatever, y'all work together. But if it's just a boyfriend, girlfriend situation or baby mama, you can't drag people with you. They're dead weight. If they don't want to make these changes and do the work on their own, and you're showing them what works, you can't. You gotta keep moving. You got to keep moving. They become dead weight. You know what I'm saying? And people that are not proud of you for your evolution, you got to leave them behind too, because they will do everything in their power to keep you in the space that they're comfortable comprehending you in. You understand what I'm saying? But that space was not comfortable for you. You know what I'm saying? And you're going to bump your head. That I made a lot of mistakes. I showed my ass at sometimes. You know what I'm saying? It's a process. Transformation, what's going on when you inside that cocoon, nobody sees that, but when you bust out and them butterfly wings get to flapping, it's like, wow, see the beauty in yourself. You cannot care what people think. You cannot, that's the number one thing. And like I said, Dr. Joyce Meyer's approval addiction will definitely heal you in that area. If you can get rid of caring what people think and stop being a follower and be a leader of your own life, it opens up so many things. And grief recovery, handle your emotional baggage, handle your stuff, take yourself through the process of what you've emotionally built up from certain losses that have occurred in your life that you just kind of put a band-aid over. But yeah, it's going to take some courage. Okay, it's not for the weak. And like I said, you're going to be attacked a lot for being different. But even I'll take it back to the religious side. If you are still in that Christian, Jesus, they did that to him. He was very different. He was something different that came on the scene. And they was like, who the hell he think he is? He was young. He was powerful. They didn't understand where his power came from. They accused him of being the devil because he was bringing in an unorthodox way of being. The New Testament was about to be born, and those people lost their damn minds. he endured the same attack. His own peoples killed him, you know what I'm saying? But they realized he can't be killed, you know? Same thing. Buddha went through the same thing. When he left all his riches and he went to be poor, they kept saying he was mentally ill. He was crazy for leaving his riches and purposely becoming poor, you know? So the society we live in does not honor difference and uniqueness and evolution like it should, but do what you got to do. So I will, you know, and on the road to self-mastery, I will highly encourage you to do approval addiction books first, and grief recovery, and then just work your way through, and you'll notice your mind, your thinking is going to change. And when your thinking starts changing, everything else around you will change. Okay, so that's the best advice I can give as far as self-mastery. How do you do certain things? You know, people, you know, sometimes people meet you and they'll meet you at the end of your evolution or see that, oh wow, but they don't know what you went through to get to that point, you know, and they will attack you without knowing the full story. But again, that's okay. That's what people do. They fear what they don't understand. And if you become super, super successful, you could have been a crackhead out here in these streets, got yourself clean, and now you running a homeless shelter, and you got a chain of homeless shelter, and you rich. You doing a service to the community. You're helping house and heal others. But the people that knew you as a crackhead, and I wasn't no crackhead now, but the people that knew you, they still gonna be like, well, you know, he probably took some of that money and he's smoking it. You know, he's smoking that money up. You know, or they could have seen you one day early in the morning without a haircut. You at the gas station or whatever, knowing your papers stacked. You doing well. You've been sober for 20 some years. Your businesses is thriving. They just see you one day without your shave, and oh, I seen him at the gas station. He look like he down bad. He's smoking up that money. That's not funny, y'all. But you know how people do. They wild, man. You know how people do. They just don't want to, you know, even celebrities go through that. You know, once you make it to a certain level, now you in the Illuminati. Now you doing this, you doing that. You know, Beyonce is this. You know, her and Jay-Z it is. You know, Oprah is a child sacrificer now. And so, self-mastery. The first thing is being okay with change, having a strong will to see something different for yourself, and being firm and not caring what other people think. You cannot care about other people's opinion of you, your life, your past, your present, or your future. Okay? Do it for you. But if you have children, show your kids something different. Show them something different. Show them something different. And you cannot be afraid to stand alone. You cannot be afraid to stand. If you one of them people that's got to be around a lot, that's going to be difficult for you. That life may not be for you. But you have to be okay being alone sometimes. It's all right. And just being alone don't mean you're lonely. It's okay. Okay. Going back to the religious aspect, Jesus and Buddha, they had to do that alone. There was times when Jesus had to go off by himself away from them disciples. He had to. And then there was a point where he had to just leave everybody in general. Like, okay, I got to go. Okay. I done taught y'all enough. Y'all done seen enough. Y'all take it from here. I got to go. You know, Buddha the same way. He had to leave his family, his village. You know, I gotta go. So you have to you're gonna have to be okay spending some time alone as well. You can't be afraid of that. And you'll be able to come out amongst the people. It might be a new set of people, you know, but you'll be okay. So I'm gonna just go and stop rambling. I'm gonna leave that right there, and I hope this helps somebody. And I hope you know, and I'm gonna try to list the title of these books in the description here. As many as I can get in there, but try to get a hold of some of these books. But like I said, I would suggest starting with Approval Addiction, Joyce Meyer first, and finding a grief recovery specialist to go through grief recovery. And Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich if you're trying to work on your money, for sure. My Single Mom. Oh, you know what, y'all? I'm sorry. There's 2 other books I forgot to mention. Dr. Gary Chapman, 5 Love Languages and 5 Languages of Apology. I'm going to throw them out there, especially if you're married or you have a relationship. Gary Chapman, 5 Love Languages, 5 languages of apology. And even in parenting, there's one, 5 love languages that have to do with your kid. I can't remember the name of it, but it's specifically for kids. Find that one too. That will open up a whole new beautiful door for your relationship or your marriage too, of understanding, even friendships. Okay, so yeah, the 5 love languages and 5 languages of apology, Dr. Gary Chapman. Check that one out too. But if you're a single mom and you're raising boys, definitely get He Motions by Dr. T.D. Jakes and Wild at Heart, John Eldridge. All right, y'all take care. Thanks for watching. Bye.